Hey guys, how you doing? Owlnonymous here. We're going to be looking at preparing an SD card for the MiSTer FPGA. This is an updated video from my last one. A few things have changed, the scripts that we use and how we do it. So I wanted to make an updated video. Just like last time, you're going to start with on the official MiSTer GitHub, which will be linked. All the links and websites I show will be listed in the bottom of the video. So we go over here and we go to, just like last time, we go to the setup guide here, and you're going to want to download the latest SD card installer. This was released on the 20th, 4/29/2020, so last month. And you download that and you extract it, and you get you get these files right here to the left. We double click the MiSTer Start SD card utility. Put your SD card in a USB reader, and you will have this main SD card installer tool ready to go. You want to make sure that the drive, the SD card that you are using, is selected here, and you're going to go ahead and do full install. If you're using an older card, you might want to use the wipe function first, and that just makes sure everything's clean. But we'll do this full install here. It will ask if you want to continue. Make sure it is the device, the SD card that you want to use. We'll hit yes here. You'll have a bunch of windows pop up, and it will also ask if you need to format the drive. Just hit cancel if that happens. So this will just take a minute here. With this new update, we're going to be running a new script that actually just came out by JPS, and what it does is it combines the other 5 scripts that you normally need to run in sequence to one script, and it just simplifies things. And this is probably the way I'll be starting SD cards moving forward. So as this is almost done here, we'll wait for this to get over. And then I'll show you the files that it creates. All right, so full install for disk 3 finished successfully. All right, so this is the data that's now created. You have a Linux folder, you have a scripts folder, you have a menu RBF. You have the main MiSTer, and then a MiSTer INI example. Now, you can go ahead and customize this here if you want to, and then rename it MiSTer.ini. So your HDMI output, your composite sync, you need to put to 1 if you want it to work, over RGB. VGA scaler, you want to put to 1 if you're doing a VGA output from the analog I/O. There's other things you can set here, like the font, but there's an INI setting script you can end up running once you have the updater run. That's easier to use. But if you're using HDMI out, you should be able to see the MiSTer without having to mess with any of that. So the new script I'm going to recommend is by JPS. It's, let me see, where's my link? It will always be available at this retro FPGA updater link. So retrofpga.com / and then this latest updater zip. With that, you get, let's go here. So you get these 4 folders here. So you get update all on SDDB9 fork, update all SD. So this is if you're using like a DB9, probably Antonio's setup with the DB9 output. Or USB. So since we're using SD, we're storing all the files on an SD card and not a USB. We're going to double click on this second option, which is just the SD one, and we're going to copy all of these over to the script folder that was created after running the installer. So this is what our script folder now looks like. If you're going to be plugging in your MiSTer setup with Ethernet, there's nothing further to do before running the updater, because you'll have internet. If not, you need to configure your Wi-Fi, and you do that by editing in this Linux folder. There's a WPA folder file that you need to edit. So what this file is is you just put your SSID right here, and you put your password right here. Now this is if you're using a USB, Wi-Fi device. I use the Archer T2U Nano. Works perfect without having to run any drivers. So I already have, and you need to rename it to you just need to get rid of the underscore here. So I already have that file prepared for MiSTer. So I'm going to copy that over. All right, and that's all that we do on this side. From then, you would eject the SD card and insert it into the MiSTer. Now, I'm running this on a SD card that we've done this already, just because it saves time for the full video. But you'll see here. I'm goofing. Sorry, I want this. Yeah. Now we're going to put the SD card in here. And turn the MiSTer on. Alright, so from here you would hit F12 or the middle button on your MiSTer and go to scripts. Now you're not going to have all these scripts that it's showing, but you're going to go to update all, and this will make sure you have it all. So this update all now gives you the option of doing just the official updater, the JT updater, the HB MAME getter, and the arcade organizer. So since you'd want to do the left one, you'd want to do all four. So hit left on your D-pad after programming D-pad, or just hit left on your keyboard. But for this purpose, we'll just do the first choice. But you want to do choice 4 or choice left. And this is going to run through and run everything here, and it runs it in sequence, and it'll let you know when it's done. It's going to take about 20-25 minutes. So the full updater downloads the fonts, the cheats, all of the latest cores, creates the directory folders and the games folder for all of your files. And then it runs the JT core updater, which downloads all the JT, JTAGO, MRAs and RBFs. That was just adopted to use the Locatus script, so that's nice, because previously you had to drag over everything yourself. And then it's going to run the MAME getter, an HB MAME getter. That's by Amore 2600. And that grabs all of the arcade MAME ROMs and puts it in your games/MAME and games/HB MAME folder. And then it runs another Amore 2600 script, which is an organizer, and we'll look at that output. But what it does is it's really nice. It creates an alphabetical assortment arranged by alphabets. You can also look at stuff by core, by genre, anything that's specified in the MRA. So it's really nice to have set up. Let me see. Let me look at my notes real quick. Yeah, I'll explain. We'll look at the root. We'll look at the root structure here in a minute. We'll look at the arcade folder. Going forward, I believe they don't want you to have a boot ROM folder, so everything is placed in its respective folder, and it's called boot.rom. So, like, say the Super Nintendo BIOS or Commodore 64 BIOS, that will be in /games/C64 boot.rom. So you can find all these files yourself and place them in there. But what I'm probably going to end up recommending is going over to archive.org and going under the EverDrive pack archive. And from here, you're going to want to get the main MiSTer pack right here. So this will always be updated. The latest one came out yesterday. And download that and extract that onto your SD card after you've run the updater. We'll look at that. Okay, so the updater just got done here. So that's good. But it would take a lot. It's going to take, you know, a lot longer after you're done, or your first time you run it, and you want to run all 4 again. So we're just going to hit space, and we're going to look at what this starter pack entails. So in this starter pack, it includes some config files, which simplifies things. Those are mostly for all your computer cores. It's going to have Doom if you want to install Doom by running the Doom script. You're going to have all, so like I said, you're going to have all these boot ROMs all configured and ready for you, as well as some ROMs for stuff that is allowed to be shared. So Commodore 64 has a boot ROM right here. There's also all these README files, so it will help you know what files to put in there. But like, so Super Nintendo doesn't have a boot ROM, I guess. But what you're going to do is, so place SNES pack here. So in this same archive.org location, you're going to be able to, you know, go here and get the latest Super EverDrive pack and game series collection if you want it, and put those, just drop those into this folder. So you know, you could just this is what your SD card's going to look like too. It's just going to be, you know, games, SNES, and then you would just drag, you know, you don't have to unzip it or anything, just drag it in here. Now, some of these MiSTer add-on packs, these need to actually, that are .7Zs, those actually need to be extracted onto the card. So the Amiga setup, the Atari ST setup, Commodore 64, CPS, you don't need the CPS one anymore. MSX, Neo Geo, NES, etc. Now these add-on packs are like stuff that it was fixed for the MiSTer, I believe, but you still need to get the main like NES EverDrive pack. Yeah, like the EverDrive pack right here. So let's take a look at the SD card as it is now. So I also want to show you how to FTP into your MiSTer. So if you hit F12, so this is your main MiSTer menu. This is after the script is run. You can hit F12, and now you're going to have all these different scripts here. So that's nice. But let's first FTP into the MiSTer. So that's your local IP address. So I use a program called WinSCP. Let me drag it over here. So I inserted that local IP address, and then your username is root and your password is 1. So if we go ahead and connect here, this is now what the SD card looks like after running all 4 updaters. So if you ever see a recycling bin or the system volume information folder, you can delete that. It's not necessarily needed. So all the RBFs or the arcade folder has all the MRAs, which are the MiSTer arcade launch files. Those are basically XML. Your cores, all your RBFs are going to be in here. Your alternatives, which are alternative MRAs for running like different regions, are going to be in the alternatives. And then you're going to have this organized folder. And these are all symlinks, and you're going to be able to launch arcade games by the core, by alphabet, by year, manufacturer, core, category, etc. It's really nice. All of the MAME and HB MAME files are now recommended to be stored in your games MAME and HB MAME. So HB MAME and MAME, and those will be downloaded by the script as well. Okay, so yeah. So now let me show you what it looks like after you run everything. Oh, well, from here actually, we want to run a few scripts here. So I gotta pull up my notes. All right. So, okay. So we want to run first thing I like to do is turn on fast USB polling. So you just run that real quick. And that turns the polling down to 1 millisecond. So it makes most of the USB controllers super fast, not needing any kind of other solution. Okay, so F12 scripts. Now we're going to run your time zone one. This will set your local time zone. Oh, just because it wasn't online. There we go. With these Wi-Fi dongles, you have to wait a second before it connects to the Wi-Fi network. With Ethernet directly plugged in, it's instantaneous. All right, so I think that's everything. Now, if you have any other further INI settings here, you can change it here. This is pretty handy for setting, specifics. The VSync adjust is if you're playing on an HDMI monitor, you want to try the lowest lag solution. That way you have the lowest input lag. I capture since I play on an RGB monitor, I capture at 0 because it's the most compatible signal. You can set composite sync on if you're going to play on RGB. If you're using component, you want to set YPBR to be on. If you're using a VGA monitor, you want to set VGA scaler on. The OSD timeout is the main menu. I set it to 1 hour because I like it to be constantly on. And then font. Since it downloaded all these fonts, you can go and look through the fonts. I like this puzzle bobble. It's really clean. Volume control, I like to be on. That is a setting that allows you, if you have a keyboard with a volume adjust, you can set it independently in each core. Not independently, you can set it, you can raise and lower the volume by the keyboard. So I think that's everything here. And then just hit save. And this will reboot. I'm just trying to make sure I cover everything. I feel kind of scatterbrained, but I wanted to make an update to this video. Let's look again at the root now. So this is now the root of your SD card from FTP. You can see this by pulling out the SD card and putting it in your computer, or you can FTP into it. So you have it already downloaded the cheats, downloaded filters, fonts, gamma correction, and a whole bunch of scripts. You're able to set up MiSTer alt, INI and alt INIs, multiple alt INIs, and you can also have corresponding wallpapers for that. If you want a wallpaper in here that ties in with the alt INI, and then you do menu _ alt and whatever the naming that you have the alt INIs for. So you can set up alt INIs for different resolutions, different analog outputs, and you just basically duplicate the MiSTer INI and make changes in that INI. You can cycle through the MiSTer and alt INIs by hitting if you have the analog IO, by hitting the 2 right buttons at the same time, and that will reboot the MiSTer and launch the alt. I have something I've maintained called the MiSTer cheat sheet. The MiSTer cheat sheet is an INI that you can, or a text file that's on a paste bin that you can. It's always linked at the top of my Twitter. I'll put a link in this video as well. But what this does is it's simple instructions for loading any computer core. So for like the Atari ST, these are all the settings you need to set. Since if you are going to be dragging over the MiSTer starter pack, it will have this all configured for you automatically. But for like loading an Amstrad disk game, how do you do that? So you launch the core, you load the disk through the OSD, you type cat, and then you type run, and then quotation game name, and hit enter. So this simplifies things for, you know, computers you might not have any experience with. All right, so let's go ahead and look at a file that's complete, or a SD card that's completely done. I use a little HDMI end plug, and it worked perfect for an SD card insert tool. This is a Ultimate MiSTer case, but you can get a similar case from MiSTer add-ons. Alright, so this is a completely loaded SD card. So this has all the EverDrive packs, this has all of the MiSTer add-on packs, and everything's all configured. Let's look at this SD card and see what this looks like. So I would just hit, you know, the IP is still the same, so we're still able to just use WinSCP and launch right in here. So with this, I just renamed the OCD in me wanted everything caps case. But you know, after a couple uses, you'll have saves in here. If you load the Game Boy Advance core, you'll have a save states folder. If you've installed Doom or ScumVM, you're gonna have ScumVM folders. You can create a wallpapers folder and have a bunch of different PNGs and JPEGs in here. And if you have no menu .jpeg or .png, you can cycle through different wallpapers on HDMI, hitting F1, and then you'll eventually get to one of your custom ones. Now, every time you reboot the MiSTer, you should get a new wallpaper. So I really like the look of that. You'll notice there's an LLAPI folder here for launching LLAPI cores. I'll put a link to the LLAPI script. It's not a part of the official MiSTer repo, but it is a script you can run, and then you can play, you know, with your blister, or you can use a Gamer Pro. The snacks, all the snack stuff and snack support is usually integrated into the official RBF. All right, and I think that's about it. If I've missed anything, I'll make sure to make notes in the bottom of the video. But yeah, that's the new setup. It's a lot simpler than it used to be. Thank you everyone who has you know, contributed to the MiSTer project. I think MiSTer is the future, and FPGA gaming in general is the future to retro gaming. If you like what you see, please follow me on Twitch and Twitter. I do live streams almost every day on Twitch. And if you like this video, please hit thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.